The Germans are renewing their attack on the 99th Infantry, which is falling back into Eupen. Axis Commandos disrupted the 4th Infantry, continuing their focus down here in the south. So the Germans are probably going to make their major effort down here in the south. Their primary target is going to be Bastogne, because there's not a whole lot else that's worth immediate victory points down here. So my first move wants to be reinforcing that using the 10th Armored. Now the reinforcements there are probably not going to be able to stop the Germans if they make a real full tilt effort, but they'll definitely slow them down. Okay, little movement up here in the north, but that's okay, because you do get a nicely sized shot in the arm here. The only thing you want to be careful with these December 17th reinforcements is if you leave Verviers uncovered, you have to make sure there's no way the Germans can easily get to it. What do I mean by that? Imagine if the 1st SS Panzer had started the day in Malmedy. If it had done so, you would have to worry about them crossing the river into Eupen, destroying whatever you have there, and then exploiting right into Verviers. And if you've left it uncovered, that means all of a sudden you have lost your city, which is worth 2 victory points every turn, and you've lost the location of most of your reinforcements. And so then you will be a sad panda. But the 1st SS Panzer is already moved. There's nothing else in the sector that would make me worry about Eupen for today, and so I can feel pretty okay about leaving Verviers uncovered. And having said that, we'll see if the computer then makes a fool out of me. But, well, still moving in the south. Okay, the other thing that's nice is any of your infantry that survived the 16th can now move. So we've got the elite 2nd here. And it's tempting to try to hold Monschau, but there's really not a lot of point. It's not worth any points. And there are too many other places you could use that. So I'm going to get the 2nd moving. And they can bolster Eupen this turn, and the next turn they'll be on the road net. You really want to... One of the only major advantages you have early on as the allied player is that your infantry can make strategic movements. You really need to use this. Get your infantry onto the road net as quickly as possible and use that to set up defensive lines where the Germans when the Germans have committed their forces and you have a pretty good idea where they're going to go. Unfortunately, the Germans have commandoed the big infantry unit that I have down there in the south, so I'm not going to get a chance to practice what I preach very much today. What I can do, though, is start thinking about protecting Hauffalize. So with the 1st Infantry now in place to take care of Spa, I can bolster the defenders in Hauffalize. And meanwhile, the Germans continue to gain ground, which you pretty much have to resign yourself for the first few days. You're not going to be able to stop them. They're going to move forward. You just need to make sure that you don't lose anything that is worth a lot of victory points or has a strategic location or would otherwise be annoying to have to take back. I'm also starting to worry about this sector a little, not a lot, but a little, because you have to worry about the Germans taking a panzer force, blowing through and exploiting here. Admittedly, with the blocking forces I have in place, it's a low probability, but If you get overconfident and guess wrong, they can race across the Meuse and snag their auto win condition and leave you with a very embarrassed look on your face as you lose the game on day 4. So, you're not going to have strong enough forces to stop them by combat. What you can do is slow them down by putting units, even if they're little tiny dinky units, on the other side of the Aurth River here. And what that will do is prevent panzers from using road movement to cross the river and slow the Germans down just enough to get some substantial blocking forces in place, which, when you get right down to it, is really the name of the game for the first few days as the Allies. You can't really stop the Germans. You're just trying to slow them down. Okay, the Germans are moving very deliberately here. They could have attacked Bastogne. I think it's actually a good decision not to. The only thing that could have gotten there was 4 points worth of panzers, and going up against 7 points worth of armor that's already in defensive terrain, that's not going to come out in your favor. Another thing that you can exploit as the Allies is that the Germans, again, do not have that many panzer units, which means that if you can start to whittle them down through attrition, they're going to have a very difficult time replacing that striking power. So, if you can suck the German player into making attacks where you can do a little damage to his panzers, again, without catastrophically losing strength, you can set yourself up for victory later in the game. Okay, interesting. The Germans look like they might be making a major effort in the north after all, which means I'm going to have to compensate a little, but that's okay. And there's the 18th. Thanks.